College football nerds here talking LSU and Tennessee. This is a bigger matchup than maybe we would have thought looking at this in the preseason, Josh, but it's pretty exciting to talk about this one and have this game kind of turn around and be something really, really interesting, mainly because of the contrasting styles of these two teams. LSU struggled a little bit offensively this year. Tennessee has at many times struggled defensively. So, Josh, just from the jump, if you're thinking about these two teams and the matchups that we're going to see, who benefits more? An LSU team that struggles offensively and has a really good defense at times, facing a team that might give them some ground and make things a little easier offensively, or Tennessee, who's got an elite offense and is going to face a team that maybe can't get things going offensively and maybe has a defense that's not as good as its numbers, just hasn't seen an offense like Tennessee's.
It's definitely a contrast to two styles, I think, because LSU as an offense has been less than explosive at times. Their offense has been working more by grinding out the ball. I mean, Jayden Daniels last week against Auburn went 8 of 20, 80 yards, 4 yards per attempt. Not good numbers. They ran the ball for 3.8 yards per carry. Again, not good numbers, and managed to put 21 points on the board. Now, Tennessee's defense is not Auburn's, but I think it does speak a little bit to what LSU wants to do. And then on the other side of the ball, you've got Tennessee that is an explosiveness-based team playing a defense in LSU that had some gaffes against Auburn and has had gaffes throughout the season in the secondary. It's kind of hard to say, right? You know, what is more effective in college football? Is the efficiency train more effective, or is the explosiveness train more effective? And I think the answer to that usually comes down to what kind of a score you're trying to hit. Usually you need both if you want to hit 45 points in a game. But if I'm going to be in a high-scoring game, in general, I'd rather be in a high-scoring game where I know one offense is consistently moving the ball rather than being on the other side and having a team that's going to hit some shots. Because if you're trying to hit shots against busted coverage or whatnot, one possession that's going to work, and then the next possession you're not going to hit your shot, and then you're going to end up punting. And in those games, I feel like you kind of get out of whack, and you kind of get a little bit kind of get yourself in a little bit of a hole because you can't keep pace. But it's tough, and I think these teams are fairly evenly matched. And you know, Daniel, I'm going to throw this out here quick, right? The model in Vegas are way off on each other, which is an interesting thing, and I think it says a lot about the conversation we just had and the realities of the styles in theory and in practice.
College Football Nerds has a new sponsor. Josh, I wear shorts all day, every day. I wake up in them, I work in them, I go to sleep in them, and I need something comfortable. But even though I'm a dad, my wife won't let me do the dad kit thing. No cargo shorts, no baggy stuff. I got to have something that's flattering. And I'm 6'4", 240, and I could even stand to lose a couple of pounds, but Bird Dogs fit the bill for that. They're super flattering. They're super comfortable. Got a built-in liner, and I can wear them whenever I want to. Wife loves them. They pass the wife test. But, Josh, you live in a cold climate sometimes in D.C., and you can't always just wear shorts, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I'm also a nerd, which means I have no idea how to pick out my own clothing. So when Bird Dog sent us a sample of these, and I'm currently wearing the joggers, what I discovered is that they sell a line of joggers. They sell pants that are semi-professional business pants that look nice. They fit nice. I'm 6 foot, a little too close to 240 for my height, but good enough that these things fit. They fit well. They have lined and unlined stuff. And I got to say, it's comfortable. It's fashionable. It's as good as that other brand with the Greek logo, but it's $20 less. So I've actually liked them enough that I've talked to my wife about buying more. And that has nothing to do with the fact that they're giving us a promo. It's just a good product and something that I genuinely would endorse.
So go to birddogs.com, enter promo code CFBNerds, and they will throw in a free Bird Dogs rope hat. That's birddogs.com, 2 Ds. Promo code CFBNerds, and boom, free Bird Dogs rope hat with your pair of Bird Dogs. The most comfortable shorts, pants, sweatpants with built-in liners. You will not want to take these things off. And guys, we don't do a lot of Patreon or ask for too much. But when somebody supports the channel, we want to make sure that y'all do your thing and go out and support them. So go to birddogs.com, 2 Ds, buy some good stuff, make your wife or girlfriend happy. I think that, Vegas has got this a pretty tight game, and part of it's the road. I think that, playing at LSU is a big neutralizer. I think there's some question marks about what Tennessee's offense can do against a really good defense. And look, I don't love like even going back to the Pitt game. Like Pitt's a pretty bad football team this year. They just lost to Georgia Tech, scored about the same amount of points as they did against Tennessee, and they did get that winning against West Virginia, but West Virginia is terrible this year. But I also think that facing a really good offense is a lot more shocking to a team than facing a really good defense. And especially when I feel like Tennessee's offense is closer to the elite side of the equation, and I feel like LSU's defense is really more of the really good side of the equation. So if we're talking about matchups and we're talking about who's going to get maybe shocked early, I think that Tennessee can maybe steal some points before LSU can react defensively. But since you talked about the model, let's get into it and see what the model says, and maybe we can pivot off of that.
Right. So our model starts off with percentage of opponent averages, and here you really see a mirror image. LSU and Tennessee both are allowing right at 79% of opponent rushing averages. That number is a good number. It's not an elite number. You can get that number right now, for example, with Alabama at 55%, down really low. Great football teams can stop the run if they want to in college football. That's why passing games are a lot more valuable for elite football teams. We consistently see those numbers be, often like 20% different. The elite defense is going to be 55% run, 75% pass. Here you see that difference showing up again, but it's 80% run, 100% pass. You basically 97 and 98% passing averages. These are defenses that are, in terms of some college football, maybe slightly above average. In terms of SEC team, pretty mediocre on both sides. But statistically, it's fascinating to me that whatever the reputations are, our model, which is based off purely comparative statistics, considers them dead even. These are the same defense effectively. And so when it applies it, you end up basically just having a straight comparison of offensive statistics. Tennessee runs the ball and throws the ball, a little bit better overall than LSU does. I do think one of the more interesting things there is Tennessee, for all the hype on their passing game, does run more than they throw. And conversely, LSU is actually more balanced, almost 50-50. And that makes up a little bit of ground. But, sum total, you still end up with a Tennessee team that's expected to outgain LSU by about 1.5 yards per play. That translates into a pretty big difference in scoring potential. Our model has it 44-26. So that's the model in a nutshell. But how do you balance that against a game where Tennessee's only favored by 3.5, despite our model favoring them by 18?
I think the 18 on our model might be a little bit because the model doesn't know what to do with how these teams produce their points and their opponents, to be honest. To this point, we want to think that Florida's a great team, right? And we feed the model data about Florida putting up 33, and you'd think that would hurt Tennessee a little bit, but that 33 wasn't a 5-point game, in my opinion. That was a lot of Florida getting lucky really late. That's in terms of production and how that game went, that's a 14-point win, in my opinion, for Tennessee. And that's where I think maybe the model should see that, and it doesn't. Akron's terrible. Pitt's not great. Ball State's not great. So who has Tennessee played this year? But I think that we know enough, and I know you hate priors, and I'm not really going priors, but I'm going to go system. We know Heupel's system puts up points. It put up points last year on Alabama. They gave Georgia fits for 3 quarters until Georgia figured it out. So I think that this Tennessee offense, especially with an incumbent quarterback, is going to find a way to score. I also think that something the model can't see and Vegas can't see, that nobody's talking a lot about this year, except during the broadcast, is Tennessee can get into your depth. And I don't love LSU's depth, even though I think they've got a great frontline starting defense. I think Tennessee's going to run some plays on them. A lot more pace and a lot different than what they saw against, maybe an Auburn or a Florida State. If Tennessee's putting up 90 plays in this game, what's LSU going to do with that? How are they going to react? Are they going to be able to respond if Tennessee gets up 13, 17 points early? I don't think they will. I do think it's a closer game than maybe the fans think. I think the fans are probably, the casual fans, the invested fans, looking at these two teams, they're probably more in line with the model. especially when you look at this ranking. Tennessee's number 8. But I think it's going to be closer to Vegas. I still got Tennessee winning 31-24. Tell me what you got.
It's an interesting one in a lot of respects because the statistics of the teams they've played to date are so bad in various areas that it's hard to compare them. And what do I mean by that? Between the two teams, they faced one team in the top 50 in rushing, and that's Florida, who was 10th. But Florida has no effective passing game. So Tennessee was able to sell out hard against the run, gave up some good numbers passing, but they did it only because they were totally sold up against the run. Everybody else Tennessee's played has been 90th or worse rushing, and Florida State's the best team that LSU's played in rush offense, and they were 50th. And likewise, when you talk defensive statistics, you end up in a similar situation. The only team in the top 50 that Tennessee has played in terms of defense was Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh's statistics are themselves kind of inflated because they played Western Michigan, mostly shut them down. Every other game they've been sort of hit or miss. They played Georgia Tech, who's not great. But Pittsburgh's 26th. After that, Florida's the best yard per play defense Tennessee's faced, and they're 95th. Everyone else is 95th or worse. So our model, because it's purely comparative, is kind of struggling a little bit, I think. You've got, again, you talk these offenses and run games. This is the best rush offense that LSU's faced, and this is the second best rush offense that Tennessee's faced. Certainly the best overall offense that Tennessee's faced by a really significant margin. I think when you take those things together, that should indicate to you that maybe LSU, who's been challenged a lot more than Tennessee, probably should be given a little more credit for face value impression. And they lost that Florida State game that they probably should not have lost. And whenever that happens, people overreact. You should overreact from a resume standpoint to some degree, but you shouldn't overreact from a projection standpoint, because that past loss doesn't mean you're going to lose again or suddenly be a worse team because you played below your level or had some stupid mistakes. I will also say that LSU has the advantage of having a great pass rush. They have Ojulari, they have Ali Gay. I think that having great edge defenders is a big advantage against Hooker, who likes to scramble, who's not always the best at reads, and is a great passer when he's allowed to sit back there in the pocket and create. I think LSU is going to be able to negate a lot of the things that Tennessee wants to do. I think Tennessee's going to score points. I think they're going to score points in spurts. It's either going to look really easy or really hard. And I think LSU is going to make a really big game of it. They've got Emory back from suspension, which is a big deal. Showed up a little bit in the Auburn game. I think that takes another step forward. I'm actually going to pick LSU with the upset here. I'm going to say LSU 31-28. My confidence level would be really low, but this game is a tight spread for a reason. And I think anytime that you have a situation like this where Tennessee is valued much more highly than LSU by, I think, by the public, I imagine most of the money is going to go towards Tennessee, and Tennessee's getting 3.5 or 4 points. I think right now it's rolling. It looks like towards 4 points advantage, and that's not a good sign, right? It's not a good sign that Vegas is not wanting to give Tennessee a lot of points, even though they're the top 10 caliber team in people's minds. This one's primed for an upset. To me, it's a trap bet. There are a lot of reasons to kind of question Tennessee's performance and statistics to date based off schedule. With one real team, and that one real team in Florida is looking more and more shaky as the weeks go by, both on their own performance and the quality of the people they played. So yeah, I'm actually going to take LSU in the upset in this one.
So you said that they shouldn't have won the Florida State game, or they should have won the Florida State game and shouldn't have lost that game. Maybe. But Josh, they should have lost the Auburn game. They got dominated in the box score. They got dominated in that game. There were 4 turnovers, including one of the dumbest running back interception turnovers I think I've ever seen. Maybe since Auburn tried to trick play against Penn State last year and had a stupid.
Well, and that was, that had to be a great karma if you're an LSU fan, right? Because you got Coy Moore bragging the week prior about he's more talented than everybody in that wide receiver room. Well, I guess he might have been a more talented wide receiver, but he was certainly not a more talented quarterback, right?
But Josh, listen to these numbers. They passed for 85 yards, 3.3 per. They rushed for 185 yards, 3.8 per. And that's against an Auburn defense that's good, not great. They gave up 438 yards to Auburn. Auburn threw for 8.6 per, but look, 4 turnovers was a great equalizer in that game. I don't think you can count on that week in and week out. The Mississippi State game, they needed 21 fourth quarter points to win that game, and Mississippi State was in control of that game for 3 quarters and then just melted. I don't know how, like, LSU's got a clean 4-1 record right now. They could just as easily be, have 2 more losses on their slate. So I think that this maybe says a little bit more about what Vegas thinks about Tennessee in a bad way than it does them thinking that LSU's really turning the corner.
Yeah, and it's not the most positive thing to end on, but I think that's probably the reality of it. I think from what I've seen from Tennessee's defense, and do you agree with me? When I went back and watched them, and I watched the Florida game, it wasn't so much what Florida was doing good, it's that Tennessee was really, really bad. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Florida can stress you in some ways, but yeah, in general, I agree. Especially late, Tennessee they had a brain fart defensively.
Yeah, and I think LSU does have a pretty good defense, probably a better defense than people give them credit for. They are havoc-based. It's interesting because I think what's going to happen is if Tennessee really gets rolling and they can sustain drives, like you said, if they get into LSU's depth, LSU's going to be in trouble. But Tennessee's speed on the offensive side of the ball can create problems for themselves because if they take negative plays, they can end up punting very quickly. They can give the LSU the ball a lot. And, like the Mississippi State game, we talk about their passing statistics. They threw the ball for 5.7 yards per attempt in that game. Like they couldn't throw the ball for crap, and they still found a way to score 31 points. And it's a lot to do with the fact that they have a quarterback that can run. They've got good running backs. And again, it didn't show up against Auburn because Auburn is still going to probably turn out to be one of the better run defenses in the conference. I actually think their defense is a little better than you do probably. But their run game now, actually getting Emory back, that wasn't completely in the fold, but he probably will be more for this Tennessee game. They got pieces to lean on you. And I think if they're able to lean on Tennessee, given the explosiveness they have at receiver that hasn't quite shown up yet, they've got all the pieces for an upset. It's tough, and this is a tight game and a tough matchup. But I will say this, as much as we're saying it's tough and tight to predict, this also has all the hallmarks of a game that could be a blowout win on either side. If LSU gets rolling and they get a lead and their receivers get in rhythm, they could really torch that Tennessee defense. And vice versa, if Tennessee gets on a rhythm and they get up by a significant margin and they start getting the play count advantage, they could burn through LSU's depth and just run away with it. I actually think this is a tight game in terms of spread, but spread is the median result, right? Like if you ran this 80 times, it's all going to hover around this point. But sometimes you have things that are very variable, and sometimes you have things that are not that variable. And the spread might be here like 3.5 a little bit, or 4 in Tennessee's favor. But I think the variability here is very high. The odds of a blowout on either side are very high. My confidence in who's going to win this game or by how much is extremely low. And it just a lot turnovers or a lot of things are going to determine this game pretty quickly. And I think if LSU is going to try to come down from a big deficit in the fourth quarter, that's going to be awfully hard.
Well, if LSU wants to beat Tennessee, they better do better than what they did last week, giving up 337 to Ashford at Auburn, because Hendon Hooker is a little bit better quarterback. All right, y'all, let us know in the comments what you think this score is going to be. And, maybe you can tell Josh he's crazy. LSU fans, you can tell him that you love him. But just give us a score, do your homework there, and make sure you like, subscribe, notification bell will help us out a ton. Thanks so much, y'all. Have a great week. God bless.